We'll also be talking about the World Health Organization, which is calling on all countries to remain alert as the coronavirus is not yet over. Thanks, dear viewers, for joining us in this edition of the news on Equinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Babla Jonathan. We begin in the fourth subdivision of Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, where a total of 41 cartons of fake paracetamol liquid injections have been seized by officials of the 19th District Police Station in Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision. According to security sources, the vehicle that was transporting the fake products into the country. And of course, the fake products are said to have been coming from the town of Bamenda in the northwest region of Cameroon. The person who was transporting the drugs from the town of Bamenda in the northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon was left to go for treatment, was presented to be asthmatic, and of course we'll be hearing details in the following extract of the Commissioner of the 19th District Police Station, Bonaberi, Douala 4.
The missions of the police are many. One of these missions is to look for information from good citizens who find out information which we exploit. It was in light of this information that around 6:30 p.m. on the 14th, we received information from one person around the motor park here in Bonaberi that there's a vehicle which is uploading some cartons of drugs which are suspicious, and they are coming in from Bamenda. So they sent our colleague, Assistant Superintendent of Police, Wafo, went down the field with his team, got the cartoons. When the man was asked to produce various papers concerning the cartoons, he was unable to produce documents which are showing that these drugs are authentic. As you can see, there are about 41 cartons of liquid paracetamol that they used to put in drips. So the authenticity is not assured. So when Wafo went down to the field, he called our commissioner, informed him of the situation. He himself came down to this field. We carried them here to the police station. And now we have to put them at the disposition of the hierarchy for appropriate measures to be taken.
And what about those who were transporting these goods?
What about who were transporting? They said the two of that the drugs are from Bamenda, and that they wanted to take them to one house in Abanda. So yesterday they were
of the 19th Police District, Bonaberi, Douala 4 subdivision, speaking to Smart Nchikan Gabriel. Now we're taking you to the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, where a fight almost degenerated into a bloody incident, and it was provoked by an incident which occurred involving a lady who is said to have been duped over 355,000 francs CFA. Details with Innocent.
Tension at a money transfer kiosk at the students' residential area in Bonamusaji in Yaoundé. A money transfer operation ends with exchange of punches between the operator and customer. A lady came in the morning saying she wants to deposit money in her account. When I deposit it as commanded, instead of issuing me the money, she removes a paper saying the person who sent her to do the deposits has rather given her a code that after the transaction she will have to go to a bank to to withdraw money before paying me. The money transfer agent supports that the lady has fallen prey in a scam by transferring money to an unknown individual in 3 different accounts. In the first account, she transferred 55,000 francs CFA. In the second, 120,000, and in the third, 180,000, making a total of 355,000 francs CFA. Unable to pay this sum, the operator who proposed to the lady to call her family for help was instead crowned with a crime. Instead, her sister came accusing me of holding her sister hostage since 9 a.m., telling me to give her my ID card for convocation at the gendarmerie brigade. Arriving the scene, a gendarme man faces mob humiliation over a biased compartment. Meantime, the lady has been transported to the Melen Gendarmerie Brigade, where she signs a death acknowledgement. The scam victim, by the time of this report, had already paid 200,000 francs of the 355,000 francs CFA.
Another fight which turned deadly this time around in the United States of America, involving 2 Cameroonians, and police investigation is yet to unveil the real cause or the exact cause of the tragic incident involving 2 Cameroonians in the United States of America, notably in Ohio. And Crise from the west region of Cameroon is said to have taken away his own life after killing his wife. It is attributed to a marriage that turned sour, leading to a divorce that reduced the man, Chris Takam, to nothing with nothing, and the couple has left behind 3 children. Now back to the country, we're going to talk about water scarcity, which remains a major problem in Cameroon, in both big cities and hinterlands. Inadequate potable water supply remains a major problem, and we're talking about a neighborhood here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala Subum, in the Douala 3 subdivision, where the people have been going without potable water for a long period of time, and they are calling on the administration and even local council and administrative authorities to rescue them from that situation. Smanjikan Gabriel.
Depuis 15 ans aujourd'hui, comme nous on a pris l'eau.
15 years, inhabitants of Subum in the Douala 3 subdivision have stayed without water. Attempts of making water come to their vicinity has never been successful.
Il y a cela 6 mois.
6 months ago, the officials of the water company came to us. They will curb the shortage of water. We contributed money and gave to them.
À peine 3 jours. Jusqu'à nos jours, les a donné une somme de 400.
Till date, we have given them 400,000 francs, but water doesn't flow.
Dans cette zone de Dakar, nous on souffre trop pour l'eau.
Inhabitants have resorted to use water provided to them by private individuals, which has not also resolved their problem because the water is not the best.
L'eau auparavant était propre.
At first, the water was okay, but it is now very dirty. Sometimes it comes with stone inside and with a smell. It's not good. It makes our food to be black. At times it is mud that comes out. Many have thus decided to buy water to drink, but that again is not easy as most persons are financially down. The little money we could have used to pay pop balls for the children, we now spend on buying water to drink. In an attempt of getting an answer from the water provision company, they made it clear that for now they are working at the water reserve situated in Japoma and Yato that will soon be operational to distribute water to the inhabitants of Subum in the nearest future.
Another case in point in this newscast is the locality of Dibumbari in the Mongo Division, littoral region of the country, where taps have been running dry for several months. And this, among other developmental projects, has been on the table of municipal authorities who have been struggling to solve the problem to no avail. Details with Immaculate Fogwe.
In the Bombari subdivision in the littoral region, access to potable water is a major challenge faced by the population. Due to constant water cuts, inhabitants of the area have to cover several kilometers in order to have access to the precious liquid. When water comes, it flows for just an hour. Sometimes we stay for 2 to 3 days without water. We have been asked to constantly wash our hands during this period. So, where are we going to get the water from? The plights of the population were raised by municipal councillors during the municipal council session. The water used in Douala comes from Dibumbari, but unfortunately, Dibumbari does not have water. Water is a very essential component that can help contain the spread of the coronavirus. Council authorities have to put in more efforts.
Comme je le disais, l'exécutif a un défi. Donner de l'eau à la...
The mayor of the Dibumbari Council acknowledges the fact that water crisis is a major problem in his municipality. He says they are waiting for assistance from the hierarchy in order to tackle the problem.
Vous avez raison, c'est Dibumbari qui alimente Douala.
It is very true that Dibumbari provides water for Douala, but the inhabitants of the area are facing water problems. We are currently looking for finance to address the problem. The outbreak of the coronavirus has affected the evolution of work, so we are hoping that the virus comes to an end so we can attain our objective. Added to the problem of shortage of water, constant electric cuts is another major challenge. With a budget of over 1,135,000,000 CFA francs voted, the population of Dibumbari hope that it will be used to address the aforementioned challenges.
Immaculate Fogwe reporting there, and the coronavirus figures have continued rising in the Republic of Cameroon, while government struggles to put an end to the rising coronavirus curve, while politicians, civil society leaders and medical experts criticize loopholes in government's COVID-19 response, indicating that higher measures have to be taken to stop the coronavirus figures from rising beyond 10,000 confirmed cases. And out of the country, as Europe continues to reopen and ease restrictions, the World Health Organization warns that the coronavirus is far from being over. China has reported a new outbreak in Beijing, and even New Zealand has confirmed 2 new cases after being few weeks free of the pandemic. Katsiorius.
Thousands of people line up for coronavirus tests at Beijing's Youan Hospital. The city's seen more than 100 new cases in the fresh outbreak, with 36 linked to the city's largest wholesale market, Xinfadi. The new cases prompted Beijing to suspend the planned restart of some primary schools and reverse the relaxation of some social isolation measures. Health officials have not yet shared the genetic sequence of the virus strain, but say it's related to that in Europe. Noting the case in Beijing, the head of the World Health Organization warned that cases were continuing to rise, even in countries that had successfully suppressed the virus.
It took more than 2 months for the first 100,000 cases to be reported. For the past 2 weeks, more than 100,000 new cases have been reported almost every single day. Even in countries that have demonstrated the ability to suppress transmission, countries must stay alert to the possibility of resurgence.
In England, there were long queues for non-essential stores and outdoor attractions that had been shut for almost 3 months. London's iconic store Selfridges reopened its doors to customers. the first time in its history since the Blitz that it had to shut up shop.
But just to look around and just to be amongst other human beings in a more open space, but they've done it very nicely.
Leisure sites such as drive-in cinemas, safari parks and outdoor zoos also reopened, but anyone using public transport had to use a face covering.
Talking Point is up next. Dr. Ivo Dita is joining us from the United States of America. He's a professor of medicine, assistant professor of medicine at the University of Minnesota Medical School. Doctor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. Babila, for inviting me. I want to use the opportunity to extend my greetings to all the people from the Northwest and Southwest region. And all of Cameroon, but more especially to the people from Dakmafe located in Mankon, Bamenda.
Thank you. All right. Before we talk about the management of Cameroon's health fund, I want you to give us some information concerning the incident that happened in the United States where you are, involving two Cameroonians who died in the incident. A man called Chris from the West region who killed himself after killing his wife.
Babila, it's really a tragedy. And the details of this incident remain very sketchy at this point. As you know, in the United States, when the police is doing an investigation, they do not release a lot of information. All what we have heard is that two people were involved, one a homicide and the other one a suicide, and both are currently lying in the mortuary. We do not know the details of the problem that led to these two incidents, but all we know is that they were initially a couple. They may have had some marital problems, and they may have undergone a divorce. Again, we don't know the details. All what we are getting is on social media and most likely filled with things that are probably not true. So we don't want to jump ahead of the curve and say things about this family who are currently going through a very difficult time, except to say that our prayers and thoughts are with the family and the children that they have left behind. And as more details become available, the public will become aware, and we will be happy to discuss those in the future.
What's the reaction of other Cameroonians in the U.S. with regards to this incident?
Oh yeah, it's been a shock. I mean, everybody has really been shocked at this news. This is a family who had 3 kids. I hear the oldest is only 18 years old. And people cannot understand what may have led to this kind of an incident. Again, we are only hearing they had a lot of matrimonial issues. They may have been separated. There may have been a restricting order on the husband not to come back to the home. We understand he may have been angry because he bought the house. There are claims that he was one that brought the lady to the United States. And he saw everything that he had built crumble because of some disagreements within the marriage. It sounds like he could not take it any longer and decided to take down this very devastating route, which has led to the loss of this woman and himself, and the kids are now left to themselves. So again, Babylon, the details are still sketchy. All we have heard are rumors online. We don't want to jump ahead of the curve, but as these details become more available, all of us will probably become more aware of what may have transpired in this family.
All right, as a medical expert, what advice do you have for those children who may be listening to you now?
Yeah, at this point, it's certainly they are in a state of shock. As you know, these are young kids. And as every other kid, they need the guidance of their parents. So in the absence of their parents, these kids will be left to the family, and certainly the community, the society where they are in will have to step up and support these kids, such that whether it's ever possible to fill the gap or the absence of parents is possible, I do not think, but all we can do at this point is pray and provide all the support that we can. At this moment, I know there is a GoFundMe fundraiser that is ongoing. This morning when I checked, I think about $21,000 has been raised by people of goodwill who have been touched by this incident. And again, we'll be counting on every Cameroonian in the United States or in the diaspora to step in, and even those who are back home, and try to donate to these funds so that we can help and assist these kids as they look forward to what will be a very difficult and challenging road ahead.
We don't yet have all the details on what actually happened, on the circumstances that led to the death of the two Cameroonians, but there are indications that it was provoked by some marital issues, and there may be some or many other Cameroonians and other persons in the United States and elsewhere, and even back home here, who are facing similar challenges, who are going through similar situations. What will you tell them as advice? What will you give them as advice to avoid such a tragic incident where 3 children have been abandoned to themselves?
It's really something that you don't want to happen to anyone. I personally have been married since 2005, and what I can tell anyone who is not yet married or somebody who is married is that marriage is it's a school. Where every day you learn new things, you have to embrace new things, and especially when you move to a society like the United States, where it is all different, you have to adapt. Sometimes we have a difficult time adapting to some of those changes. The United States has a lot of laws that kind of do not go along with some of the things that couples back home are used to. For example, back home, men are the dominant forces in their homes, but in the United States, that's not always the case, and you're expected to make decisions in a shared manner. And some of our men, sometimes, again, I keep saying men, but some of the women as well, you find it very difficult to come to that compromise in order to avoid some of these problems. Again, I do not know the unique circumstances of this family, but we are aware in the United States that the cultural difference from where we came from to the United States is huge, and we have to thread the lines very carefully because the change or the adaptation is often not very easy. All I can tell people, couples, is that marriage is a difficult journey. Every day you're going to learn new things about your spouse, and people live in marriage not because all is a bed of roses, but because they face those challenges. On the day you're getting married, you feel like manners has come down from heaven, but you know what? After a few weeks or a few months, it's not always the same situation. But you have to learn and know that he that survives in marriage is he that faces those challenges rather than avoiding them. And the 3 things I always tell people is you have to respect each other as best as you can, and communication. Communication is the key. If these things can happen in your marriage, then you are on a successful path. That's all I can say for now, Babylon.
Dr. Ivo Dita, let's talk about the management of Cameroon's Health Solidarity Fund at a time when the coronavirus is making its way from the big cities into the hinterlands in Cameroon, and the figures have continued rising. Human Rights Watch is raising concerns concerning the revenues, disbursements, management, and of course management of the Health Solidarity Fund of the Republic of Cameroon. The right organization is urging Cameroon to release information, to immediately publish information on the management of the country's Health Solidarity Fund. What do you think about this issue raised by Transparency, or rather Human Rights Watch?
Babila, I must tell you, this is astonishing. In fact, I think before we talk about the Health Solidarity Fund in Cameroon, it's probably important that we tell Cameroonians what this fund is actually or was set up to do, because I know this information probably comes like a surprise to most Cameroonians who never knew that such a fund existed. And it is, I think the civil society is right to be asking questions as to what this fund is all about. So let's start with a small background to state here that this fund was created in 1993. All public primary healthcare facilities are expected to pay about 10% of their monthly revenues into this fund, and these payments are mandatory. And shockingly, even during this crisis, the government has continued to remind these health institutions to continue to pay into this solidarity fund. And the goal of this fund was to provide assistance in health during health emergencies. And that is a huge underestimate of the magnitude of this problem in Cameroon. So what other time is preferred or is preferable to disburse and present these funds to the Cameroonian people? It is astonishing and shocking that since 1993, 25 years ago, people have been paying into such a fund, and we do not even have an idea, not even the rules on how the money in that fund is supposed to be spent and known to the society. And worst of all, Babylon, the 10% being paid by health institutions is indirectly paid by the citizens of Cameroon, because the health facilities simply raise the amount of money that citizens are supposed to pay in order to pay for the 10% into these funds. Rather, when we have an emergency, which is the best situation during which this money should be used, nothing happens, and we do not even know if that money is ever going to be used or not. So Human Rights Watch is doing a wonderful job in raising an alarm about these funds. And I think it is time for the Cameroon government to come out and explain to us what has happened to those funds, whether they have been used, how have they been used, and what have they been used for.
And the other amenities have been contributing for over 25 years today. And Transparency International thinks that the absence of transparency in the management of the country's Health Solidarity Fund gives an impression that corruption, mismanagement, and embezzlement could be going on.
Of course, Babila, we know the government of Cameroon. I mean, this government has nothing to do with transparency. We have been crying over many, many years about how non-transparent this government is. The government went and said what they call, is it program a pervier, or how do they call it, in order to track down people who are corrupt and who derail the funds of the state for their personal benefit. But we all know how that went. The government has used it rather as a tool to go against political opponents. So we know transparency is not a term associated with the Cameroon government. We are talking of COVID-19. Health infrastructures are suffering. They do not have the required protective equipment. There are no gowns. There are no gloves. They do not have masks. You look at it from the population experience. They don't even go to the hospital because of high costs. Even though the government claims that the testing is free, the costs associated with treating the condition do not appear to be free. And yet these funds do exist. If they do, and the government cannot disburse them, rather Mr. Biya created what he calls a solidarity fund, and is asking Cameroonians to continue to donate to these funds, to this solidarity fund for COVID. Where are the funds that have been donated for 25 years into the health solidarity funds, Mr. President? Where is that money? Cameroonians are dying. The COVID-19 has come and made the socio-economic crisis that we were in worse. 64% of the population do not longer seek help in Cameroon, primarily due to the high cost. Please, I think it's time for our government to step in, help the population, help the healthcare professionals who are taking care of these patients. So
by Don, but laments over the point that government is using the coronavirus pandemic as to settle scores and crack down on politicians, and for that reason there is a kind of a fracture in the response to the COVID-19. There is no unity in the fight against coronavirus. What do you think about that?
Mr. Babila, that is obvious. I mean, we have watched the cacophony in this government when it comes to managing COVID-19. The numbers have continued to rise. And as I told you in my introduction, it is a huge underestimate. Personally, I can tell you of how many people I have spoken to in Cameroon in the past few weeks, whom I am sure had COVID, but never went to the hospital. And what is the reason? Of course, because of the disorder around the management of this condition. The government announces measures which we know work. For example, social distancing, putting on the mask. And what do? There are no accompanying measures. Whereas we have this solidarity fund, which has been existing for 25 years, Mr. President. Why can't we use it for these people? The government goes and retains a company to make masks, and they're asking Cameroonians to pay 1,300 francs per mask. How many Cameroonians can do that? Cameroonians' families live on less than 500 francs a day, and you come in and you are asking them to buy a mask for 1,300 francs. That's certainly not possible. Now, the civil society stepped up. Politicians, individuals stepped up to help this government in combating what is a national crisis. COVID-19 does not know a political affiliation. It's not a CPDM problem. It's not an SDF problem. It's a Cameroonian problem. We have to approach it as one. We know the case of the MRC of Mr. Capital, where they came up with a survivor initiative, raised some funds from well-wishers, and tried to bring that aid to the government as their own support to help in the fight against COVID-19. How did that end up? People have been arrested. None of those things have been taken by the government. When people are dying, you cannot begin to use a health crisis to settle political scores. This government, in my eyes, has lost all its legitimacy, especially when it comes to managing COVID-19. With the broken health infrastructure, no ventilators, no oxygen, no mask, health centers where there are no doctors, there are no nurses. I've watched Equinoxe do documentaries on health centers in the remote communities where it looks more like a pigsty. And yet the government has the guts to say we cannot accept any help from any other person who is coming from a political party that's not the CPDM. Mr. Babila, in my opinion, it is criminal, and the government needs to step up, do more, protect its citizens, and stop playing politics.
All right. There are some politicians who think that solutions to these problems that we're talking about, and above all, the Anglophone crisis, can only come if there is a political transition in Cameroon. If there's a change at the helm of the state, then there will be a return to normalcy in those two regions. What do you think about that?
Again, while I'm not a politician, I've certainly paid a lot of attention to what is going on in Cameroon, particularly because it affects the region where I grew up. I now go back to my quarter, which is called Kmer in Mankon, where I grew up. Babylon. I never saw this. I never went up station here until I was going to take the entrance exam into the Faculty of Medicine in Yaoundé. And when I look back today and see what has happened, it is unbelievable. I cannot believe my eyes. You will expect that the country is moving forward. The president and the CPDM keeps talking about emergence in 2035. Is that, are we living in a dream world? And of course, how can you, on top of that political crisis, of that civil war, which is getting worse and worse by the day, you bring down the issue of COVID-19. The United Nations has asked this government, please, can we have a ceasefire? How can you fight COVID-19 in the midst of a war? Every single day, people are being killed, people are being shot. I mean, look at what happened in the United States when George Floyd was killed. The whole society came out and said, when something is wrong, it is wrong. It is not only wrong in the eyes of a black person or a white person. When it is wrong, it is wrong. Whether you belong to the CPDM, whether you belong to which political party, when something is wrong, you need to step up and be humane. What is happening in the Northwest and Southwest? I do not know whether the president is not aware or whether he has denied his humanity. He doesn't want to face this problem. When you see babies, you look at the case of Wazizi, killed, assassinated. You look at the case of Ngabo, children, pregnant women are killed. Just as a human being, talking about those things sickens my heart. As a physician, when a patient dies under my care, I am sickened to my core. It is so difficult. I can't even take it to watch healthy individuals being shot, being killed every single day, and this government sits quiet and does not do anything with respect to that. It's mind-numbing. They are parents. CPDM has mothers, it has fathers, it has brothers, sisters. Please, look back to your souls. Let's all be human. This is not correct. This is not right. It is time to stop this senseless war and listen to your people.
Dr. Ivo.
The government.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Ivo Dita, we are rounding up here. You are a professor, assistant professor of medicine at the University of Minnesota Medical School. Thanks for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today.